Ladies, welcome back to my channel. Today we are celebrating women over 50 as we usually do, and this channel is for women over 50, embracing and navigating the second phase of life. So today I'm with Paula Hewlings, and she is going to share her health recovery story, and look forward to you hearing this story because it can really inspire and motivate all of you. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks again. So let me just hold your book. So she did put her story in a book, and I will have the in the description box a link to where you could get it on Amazon. And okay, so this is wonderful. No pity party for me, the girl who refused to fail. So let's start in the beginning. You were 19 years old.
19, yes.
And you went out on a sailboat, bit by a mosquito.
Yes.
So what happened after that? And how did you know you were bit by a mosquito?
So we went on a sailboat on, I think it was a Sunday. And I got out of the water, and my mom actually said, "Paula, you have a big welt on your shoulder," like it was all swollen. So I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, okay, it's a mosquito bite. Well, the next day I started really feeling sick. I had a headache to the point where I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. It was so bad. So I went to my family doctor, and he put me on medicine for a sinus infection. And so that whole day I was fine. And then the next day, which would have been, I guess, a Tuesday, I collapsed getting out of bed.
Wow. Wow. Were you scared? I mean, you weren't home alone, right?
No. My husband was there, and he thought I was kidding around. And I said, "I'm not kidding. I can't get up." So he picked me up, put me in the car, and took me to the emergency room in Elmer Hospital. And they had no idea what was going on. No idea.
Wow. So did they keep you there or send you home? Or?
They kept me for, I want to say a week, maybe, in Elmer Hospital. And they finally did a spinal tap. Because at that point, I was paralyzed from the waist down. Like I had no feeling in my bottom half. And so they did a spinal tap, and they found bacteria in my spine. There was fluid in my spine and on my brain from the infection. And they didn't know what to do with me. They were clueless as for, because it was a weird disease. So I was going to go to Lady of Lourdes Hospital, but they wouldn't accept me because we had real new health insurance. So because I was still a teenager, technically, I was 19, Alfred I. DuPont Hospital in Wilmington, Delaware took me. And I got there, and they did all kinds of tests to figure out what the heck was going on. At first they thought it was Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is it's a reaction to a shot that you would have gotten, but I didn't have any shots. So finally they diagnosed me with post-infectious encephalomyelitis.
Wow. Wow. Did that scare you when they gave you that diagnosis?
I'll be honest with you. I was kind of in and out of a semi-coma. So I wasn't really, I knew things were happening around me, but I was kind of like in twilight. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah, so it was, once I woke up, and, my parents were there, and they told me, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is not right. So then one night I woke up, and again, like I said, I was still in and out of it. I woke up and I looked at my arms, and I saw all these wires going into me. So I ripped them all out, and I tried to get out of the bed, and I fell on the floor in my hospital room. So I wasn't the most perfect patient.
Wow. Well, it is scary.
It was
sure.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then being younger and not being in the hospital for, you probably were never sick like that before.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus I had a little boy. He was 2. And, I'm thinking, what is going to happen? How am I going to take care of this kid?
Right.
So, yeah, it was very scary. And a couple times, so in that hospital, you don't eat meals in your own room. They take you to a big dining room, and you eat meals with all of the other patients. Because in that hospital, basically Alfred I. DuPont at that time was for people that had spinal cord injuries and all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay.
So, the first time I went into the dining room, I'm looking around and all these people are in wheelchairs and tables, like stand-up tables and strapped on, and I'm like, yeah, I don't belong here. I'm not that sick. Well, I was.
Right.
So a couple times I tried to sign myself out of the hospital. I wasn't a good patient.
Wow. Well, yeah, I can imagine it would be hard to be pleasant when you're going through all that pain
And it was just
fear
right,
everything.
because I really didn't believe that I was that sick. Because other than being paralyzed from the waist down, by that time, the infection was gone. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel ill.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long were you in that hospital? 3 months?
About 3 months. Okay. Yeah. And a couple times I would get disgusted and not want to go to therapy because I didn't see any progress. But then one day, it was 4th of July weekend, and they let me come home for the weekend. And we had a barbecue, and that was the day I decided that I'm going to work my butt off in therapy, and I am not sitting in this wheelchair any longer than I need to.
Mm-hmm.
So my father-in-law at the time, his name was Al, he saw me sitting there looking around, and he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, I can't. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be in the wheelchair much longer. And he said, "You can do anything you can put your mind to." He said that's what they used to tell him in the Army. Mm-hmm. So I did, and I went back to the hospital and worked my tail off. And then I got out, and then I still had to go back for therapy. But yeah, and it's weird because when I look back at it now, when I'm out of the picture looking at the picture, it doesn't seem that much of a big deal. It was life-altering. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be the same person today if that didn't happen to me.
Yeah, I'm sure knowing you, it has increased your faith mm-hmm. and increased your willpower mm-hmm. and your determination because you're very successful.
Thank you.
You're a wonderful grandmother. I love your grandkids. And you are a successful businesswoman.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're a pleasant wife.
Sometimes.
Not looking back at you saying you were an unpleasant patient, but yeah, so you've persevered. But you also have some residual health effects.
I do. Good. So it's embarrassing to talk about, but I mean, it is what it is.
Well, I appreciate you sharing and being transparent because it can help so many women that are watching and listening that are embarrassed to talk about it. But if they hear you talk about it, then they're like, okay, I'm not the only one.
Right. So for the longest time, I always had issues with my bladder. Couldn't hold it. My husband and I, my husband now, we went to church one day and we went up to the altar to get communion. And I stood up and I just peed myself. And I just walked right out the church doors. And my husband followed me. He's like, "What's the matter?" And I said, I was so upset. So that was the time that I decided that something's got to be fixed. There's got to be something, some sort of medicine, something that is going to help me with this. So basically the issue was the nerves to my bladder never completely healed 100%. So I never knew when I had to go to the bathroom. I would just go. So went to the family doctor, told him, "You have to help me or you're going to have to find somebody that can." So he did. He found a doctor, Dr. Maroney. And that man changed my life completely. I was always afraid to leave the house. It was awful. So we had a consultation and he told me about a little machine. It's about this big and it has wires coming out of it. They're called leads. It's in my lower back and the wires go through my sacral nerves and literally tell my brain when I have to go to the bathroom. Kind of like a pacemaker for your heart, to keep your heart moving. This just literally, instead of my natural nerves telling me, that's what it does. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. So it's a brain for your bladder. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
And so
it empowered you to now feel more confident and
Right.
less self-conscious.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was bad. And so I finally, and the battery, it's about this big, like I said. It has to be changed like every 5 years or whatever, because it does die. But when he put it in the first time, and I noticed such a change, I sent him this little card with a little girl in a tutu dancing. And on the inside I said, "That's my happy dance." He still has that card.
Aww.
Every time I go see him, he pulls out the card. Because he did. He changed my life.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So.
Now you have another issue with your foot. What happened
Right.
with that?
So when they started, okay, so my therapy back when I was in the hospital, they started me slow. Well, then finally one day they put me on parallel bars, and I would walk. I say walk. They would move my legs for me. I would hold on to the bars to support my weight, and they would move my legs for me to get me started learning how to walk again. So eventually I graduated from the parallel bars, and you go on and on. Well, for some reason my left ankle, I always turned it. And for the longest time I always walked like on the side of my foot, like right here. And one day I was going to work, and I stepped down, and I literally could hear my ankle snap. I literally heard it snap. So I drove myself to the emergency room because it was in the middle of the day. And I walked in the emergency room, and the woman's like, what's wrong? And I said, "I think I broke my ankle." She said, "Well, if you broke your ankle, you wouldn't be able to walk in here." I said, "I'm telling you, I think I broke my ankle." Well, lo and behold, my ankle was broke. So they did put a cast on it, but I figured I should maybe go to a well-known orthopedic person. So I went to Rothman, and Dr. Brian Winters, yes, Dr. Brian Winters rebuilt my ankle. Like,
Wow.
I think I had 17 stitches. I have a scar on top of my foot, on my heel, underneath my foot, and on the side of my foot. I don't know if you can see that.
I can see it.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
and my husband always says, "You're turning your ankle again." I mean, it's not perfect. The doctor said it's never going to be perfect, original, but it definitely helps.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
You're
and
welcome.
Again, I want to say this is awesome because she could have given up. You could have given up. I mean, anybody who goes through 3 months of physical therapy and starts by being paralyzed,
Right.
that's intense, and it can be emotionally overwhelming and draining. You could have gave up, but you were
There were lots of
determined,
times
so-
that I wanted to give up, but then I would look at my little boy, and I'm like, I can't give up.
That was your driving
Yeah.
force. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And your age now?
56.
56.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We
Thank
celebrate
you.
women over 50.
Thank you.
Again, this is her book. I will put a link in the description box if you want to order it off of Amazon. And it's No Pity Party for Me, The Girl Who Refused to Fail, Paula Hewlings. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Just want to remind you, ladies, try something new. Start where you are with what you have. I'll catch you.